Welcome to the LeaderImpact podcast. We are a community of leaders with a network in over 350 cities around the world dedicated to optimizing our personal, professional, and spiritual lives to have impact. This show is where we have a chance to listen and engage with leaders who are living this out. We love talking with leaders, so if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions to make the show even better, please let us know. The best way to stay connected in Canada is through our newsletter at leaderimpact.ca or on social media at LeaderImpact. And if you're listening from outside of Canada, check out our website at leaderimpact.com. I'm your host, Lisa Peters, and our guest today is John Bakker. John has 25 years of experience in the auto industry as an engineer, manufacturer, and leader. In 2009, John became an entrepreneur and founded Bakker Tailored Staffing, a niche recruiting and staffing firm that has earned a reputation for service, reliability, and professionalism. In 2020, after a conversation with a not-for-profit leader struggling with the impact of the pandemic, John launched Bakker Business Services, a division focusing on helping not-for-profits and small, mid-size businesses thrive. As a leader, one of John's more significant accomplishments was the formation of a 100-person project team that successfully launched a high-visibility project with a total capital expenditure of more than $600 million. Outside the office, John spends his time working with several local, national, and international not-for-profit organizations. He has served as a mentor, advisor, and speaker, board director, and chair. He is known for his thoughtful, caring, and strategic advice. John is a professional engineer, a graduate of Queen's University School of Engineering, and holds an executive MBA at the University of Toronto Rotman School of Management. Join us now for a conversation with John on how you can reimagine your work through redemptive entrepreneurship, a place of truth, grace, and connectedness in your personal, professional, and spiritual journey. Thanks for joining us, John.
So glad to be here, Lisa.
Oh, well, if anyone is watching us on the YouTube, and I mean, if you're listening to us, you didn't get to see your profile picture. Okay, that was the best ever. You're scuba diving.
Oh, yeah. My wife took that when I came out of the water there in February when I was diving, and she had to show the kids that I actually did go. I dove back in if you have it because I was out of it for a few years. There you go.
Oh, well, I think it's the best headshot I've had to date, and definitely, I hope you use it everywhere because it's a conversation starter. It's so good.
There you go.
Do you scuba dive a lot?
I've done 32 dives, I think, which is not a lot. I know people here that do 100 dives a year, but for me, I'm a bit of a sissy. I only like the really nice warm water in the Caribbean that's clear. And it's too cold up here. So no, I tend to do it on vacations, and I have to balance it with how much time am I going to be away from my wife versus, doing, diving on the coral reef. So
I guess
I try to dive every year when we go down.
She needs to take up scuba diving.
Yeah, we've had that conversation. Didn't go well.
Yeah. All right, then. So we've already started a little bit about yourself, but tell us more. People love to hear a little bit more about your personal life, the pivotal moments that have sort of shaped you. So take it away.
Oh, man, there's so many things that, I could share. But I think one of the things is just tell a little bit about me, as a person. I actually was born into a Canadian family. It was a church-going family back in, I won't say how many years ago, but it was in the Hamilton area. So my life has been mostly in Ontario. I did actually live for 7 years in the United States in Michigan when my dad was going to school. Yeah, I was really shaped by a lot of different things. And I guess my story would be one of kind of my personality is one where if you track with, with the Enneagram, it's probably one of the better ones that I love. I'm an Enneagram 8, which is really somebody who likes to create stuff and do big things. And then I've got Enneagram 1 and 3, which are tied for second place. Enneagram 3 is I love to be engaged with people. I love the respect and I need the feedback of people. And 1 is, really about detail and so on. That's just a little bit about my personality. I really was trained and worked as an engineer, but my heart has always been for entrepreneurship and also has been in business. So I didn't stay actually practicing engineering for very long. I quickly moved into management and then got frustrated in the corporation with all the things that I couldn't do because of, how corporations work. I've been married to my wife Wendy we're going to have our 42nd anniversary actually in a month. And we've got three wonderful kids. They're all adults. We have two daughters and a son, Rachel, Alicia, and Derek. And then we have two son-in-laws. And but those are great. But what's really great is our three grandkids. We have Fenna, William, and Sophie. William and Sophie are the latest addition. They're both going to turn 4. They're twins, which is a really interesting thing. It just adds a ton of value in our lives.
Yeah, and you really got to work hard to find time because that's what's important, right? Is, you get to an older age, I got to spend time with my grandkids.
Yeah, well, one of the ways that we actually tried to work around that, I'm always looking for ways, and drives my family and my wife crazy sometimes, actually a lot of times. But we bought this property north of Kingston. I live in Kingston. My wife and I are downtown Kingston. We have a property north of Kingston, and we invited our oldest daughter and her husband to be owners in the property. So it's actually a home with fully full basement apartment. So that's their cottage. The upstairs is ours. And we've got a bunch of land, but that's really cool because he's got an excavating company. So he gets to do all kinds of great work for pretty low cost. But we get to hang out with our grandkids on a regular basis and then have the rest of our family join us. So we've created a family compound just so that we can be, spend more time together.
That's pretty good. So I have to ask, how did you move from, you were 25 years, in the auto industry as an engineer. How did you move to, how did you move to a completely new industry where, staffing and training of staff, like, how did you get there?
Most people that knew me back early on in my career, if they ever found out that I actually had like a staffing people-based company, they go, no, not John. And because really, that's a really great question because it was about my own personal transformation and the things that happened to me and the things that I've had to experience. But I guess it starts off with the fact that, I had a lot of dysfunction in my family, and I know I'm going backwards a little bit. My mom died when I was 14. My dad died when I was 30. I'd lost a sister at 28. But my dad didn't manage, my mom's passing very well at all. And so we have a lot of dysfunction in our family. I know no one else has that, but, we do. But one of the things it really did for me, though, is that we moved around a lot as well. And one of the things that I found is that, I would say I was relationally challenged early on, and I was always focusing on that level 1 or the Enneagram 1 thing where I had to be right and precise. And, well, that's not quite right. Obviously, that doesn't do a great thing for your relationships. But one of the things that I found is that, if I worked really hard, and I know I would get success to be accepted. Acceptance was one of the things I struggled with. And so one of the things that I really learned is that I could gain acceptance through success. So that actually became probably my core driver. And it was really kind of like my main compass, if you will, my main spiritual driver. Really, it would be like Tim Keller calls them counterfeit gods in his book with the same name. So anyway, so I worked really hard, and there was just a whole journey about how I actually got into high school or how I actually got into university. It was kind of interesting because university or engineering requires you to have pretty good marks in the area of math and science. I was really not having it when I left grade 12. Bad attitude. I had a D in math, and and 3 years later, I got accepted into all 3 universities. But there was a transformation there where I was living on my own. My family had moved on to another city. So, early on, I was living on my own, and I had to really apply myself and learn a ton of stuff in a short period of time. And I found out I could do it. Mm-hmm. But anyways, what really happened is that I had always wanted to do something more. I've always been a real purpose-driven person. I really struggled with the politics and the big corporation. I worked for a very major automaker. I had a lot of very significant opportunities and jobs there that I'm very thankful for, that I learned a ton from, but it was never enough, right? And so, I went and got my MBA halfway through, but I did it in a non-standard way. It wasn't the official corporate way, and I went the executive way. And it was really just, I wanted to move beyond what I had, but I had the golden handcuffs, right? It was just, you're locked in, you've got too many obligations, and really, the biggest thing is I don't think I really had the courage to do. No, my wife was there for me. She was an incredible support all through the crazy stuff I did. But what happened in 2008 was, that was taken care of for me, because at that point it was like, we were told the plant's closing. And so I worked in an automotive assembly plant. I had a lot of responsibilities in the U.S. and, did a lot of work in the U.S. as well, with the leadership or the role that I had. But I distinctly remember we were like one of the top plants in North America, and we went from like, top one or two to closed in a year. Went from 320,000 vehicles a year to zero. And that was just all caught up in that crazy time that happened in 2008, 2009 that everybody else really struggled with too. But that actually started probably what was the deepest journey in my life. And where I had to, basically all the things that I had held dear were starting to get stripped away. I had a great plan. I had spreadsheets like you can't believe with respect to how things are going to work out financially. Weren't quite working out the plan, but boy, I had a lot of detail. And the thing is that I was doing it on my own, always doing it on my own. And I realized that. And one of the things that are going through that journey, I really had to learn, what does it look like to move from focusing and prioritizing outcomes to focusing and prioritizing relationships. So that was a really deep valley. Like I said, and not only did I struggle with, the whole potential bankruptcy and all the pension stuff and all the things that were handcuffing me were just falling away. And then on top of it, Wendy actually contracted cancer, and but thankfully she's been fully healed now for about a dozen years. But that all happened all at the same time. And I did a lot of fighting and a lot of wrestling with God, if you would, through that process. But it was actually one of the best experiences of my life that I never hope to do again, looking backwards. But anyway, the cool thing about it is, in 2008, we heard about it. And then 10 days later, as I was on a plane to Zambia, only because my daughters had been there the year before, 2 years before, and she says, on a mission trip, she was there for 6 weeks, and she said, "Dad, you got to get out there. You got to meet these people. It's so amazing." And that never left me. And so, in the midst of all the kind of the craziness, I put my hand up and I said, "Hey, I'll lead a team." Never been there, never been to Zambia or Africa, and just so happened, 10 days later, I am in Zambia processing this latest news. And it was a phenomenal trip that actually started a whole new journey with this organization. I continue to be involved with them, was on the board and everything with them, and still lead teams. But the thing is, I received this, I call it a vision. And I don't know how people relate to this concept of a vision, but it's just this deep-seated purpose that I was going to be able to integrate my personal, professional, and spiritual life in ways in a business that I never could in a corporation. And by the way, I know that I should have copyrighted that because LeaderImpact now uses that. But I'm serious. Yeah. That was actually what it was. And I came back, just what's this going to look like? And I thought I was going to build an engineering company. And so I actually started to work with a supplier that we had to unpack a major contract for, and we schemed a way to sell it to back. Actually, it was into the GM Volt plant. That's at the time they were coming up with that, the electric vehicle, and we got really close to getting it. And I didn't have a company yet, and I had a $2 million bid on the table. But that, anyways, fell apart. And I had gone and told everybody in the corporation, did full disclosure, what my plans were. And then it's kind of like, okay, what do you do? And so come time for the plant to close. And I had to make a decision, but I also was privileged to be able to have an opportunity that I had, somebody that I knew that was trying to get me to go to an opportunity in the Netherlands and also in Italy. My wife liked that one. And then there was another one going to the US, and I was only one of a few that were actually offered opportunities like that. I turned them down, and I stuck with this vision and started off with just living into this vision that I had. And I borrowed an office from a friend of mine, and in exchange for doing some, consulting help from at a general manager level for his business, which was also going through a real transition. And I started in an economic wasteland. And the amazing thing was, we tried all kinds of things, what we're going to do, mostly engineering things. But the more I kept hearing, it's like, no, I don't have any engineering projects for you, but can you find me a millwright for 2 weeks? And in my heart, I go, are you kidding? Right? We're an engineering company. And my mouth said, absolutely, we can do that for you. And it was a series of those experiences that led us to have a staffing company. And within, I would say, 6 or 7 months, both of those other opportunities had turned to ash for different reasons because the executives had moved on and I would have been exposed. And this one actually led to a major contract that we just had renewed for actually the fourth time. We'll now have this thing for up to 15 years. It has been a major contract for us, and it's to provide staffing services into the automotive industry. And it's been amazing. So you talk about trust, it was huge. But the thing about trust that I've had to learn, it's not about doubt. It's about I'm going this way with all the doubts that I have in my head, but I'm putting a foot in front of the next one, in front of the next one. And it's been an amazing experience. So how did I do staffing? We figured it out. I used to do staffing in the corporation where I'd say, I need some people, and they'd send me resumes. We'd pick some, interview some, hire some. But now we have to figure this whole thing out. And we did that by talking to people and asking people and collaborating with people.
Yeah. I think the amazing thing is and John, you know this, it doesn't happen on your time.
No.
It's on someone else's time, and it will happen if it's meant to happen. It will come. And so, well, congratulations on Bakker Tailored Staffing. And then you went into Bakker Business Services. But I want to talk to you about COVID-19. During that time, you began working on a new enterprise, and I want you to tell us more about it.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. We had gone through a couple of major shocks. So in 2018, we heard we were losing our largest client by the end of the year. We figured that was going to be about a 50% reduction in we heard about it in 2018. It actually showed up. It was in 2019, the end of 2019. And so we had a significant reduction in revenue. And then COVID happened. And it's like, oh my goodness, I guess I meant to go fishing or something. And, but, we've spent a lot of time in culture, and I was just so proud of our team just on how we pivoted and the things that we did, because it was mind-boggling how our team responded. But here's the thing is that I was really of a sense, okay, we need to diversify away from just what we're doing. And we are predominantly a contract staffing company, which means that we actually are the employer of record. We hire professionals and source them into our clients, for engineering and other type contracts. But they provide services to the client. We're the employer of record, right? Just typical contract staffing firm. But one of the things that we do really well is we do admin, and we do back office, and we do payroll, and our culture and our values are such that we see it as a broken promise if we don't pay people correctly. So we basically have zero payroll defects. And we've had payrolls, in excess of 500,000, actually they're pushing even higher than that now, every 2 weeks. So there's a lot of volume that we're doing. And so we heard from a not-for-profit leader who was a friend of mine that I had developed a relationship and shared Raptor tickets with. Young guy, he's in his 30s, and he had a vibrant ministry growing, or it was really serving people, communities, with some amazing sports camps, particularly for those that just can't afford, the standard stuff, right? And he was going, the sky's falling in because of COVID. And so we talked about that, and then there was there was a document that he shared with me from an organization called Praxis Labs in the United States. And it really talks about the fact that we were not just in for a winter snowstorm. We were not just in for a blizzard. We were actually in for a mini ice age, right? And they talked about that, and they processed that and said, what does that look like, and how do we respond to that? And that was actually really formative for me in my thinking, together with my friend Brian's dilemma. And so basically he said, what if I have to cut costs. What if you take over all my, back office and bookkeeping? You guys know how to do that really well. I'm going, And he says, oh, by the way, I know a ton of organizations that would have that. Interesting. So we did. And it started to grow. And so we started off with back office and payroll services. And basically, we're saying, hey, we want to come alongside. We want to partnership with you as long as you're a real fit for us from a value and a mission standpoint. And it's like, you just go focus on your mission. We want to take care of all the stuff that you have to do but don't want to do, but you really got to do. Right. And that's where the idea started, and it's just got huge traction. And as we've been building this, we've been talking with our clients. We intentionally go out there and assess, where they're at, and they're going, well, yeah, but can you do grant writing, and can you do strategy, and can you do IT? It's really all the essentials that they are under pressure to do and do well, but it's not why they signed up for it. Most people don't sign up to do that in a not-for-profit. They're pumped about the mission, right?
Yeah.
So we want to come from behind, underneath, and we're invisible, and it's been a real privilege to be able to do that. But yeah, it's taken off beyond our expectations.
Amazing. So this praxis that you talked about, when I looked up the website, it takes it to redemptive entrepreneurship. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because I
Sure.
hadn't heard of this. So it starts off with the redemptive frame. So start there, because from what I kind of got my notes, it overlays 3 ways to work with 3 dimensions of work. And then,
yeah. Well, you know what? It's been so cool that I ran into them, and now I'm actually part of a redemptive entrepreneurship community for the last while here in Canada, which I'm really, really benefiting from. But one of the things that I found out is that it actually gave me language and a framework for thinking that I've wanted for the last 13 years. And really, one of the things they talk about is they said there's really, and they said there's really 3 different types of ways to work, right? And ways to work are, you can say it as there's 3 different types of organizations, but an organization is really just a way to organize people to do stuff, right? So basically there's 3 ways. One of them is as exploitive organizations. In other words, it's about zero sum. It's like I win, you lose, and it's about I'm going to do whatever I have to do to achieve my goals, okay? The second one is what they call ethical. The ethical organization, it's about doing good, and it's about leaning into things that are happening, and to do good and to be good is really kind of what it is. And you respect people as opposed to exploit them, but you're still really focused on your own agenda, right? The third form is what you call the redemptive form, and the redemptive form is about being intentional about stepping into places of injustice, or orienting your strategies around where is there injustice or brokenness, or where is there something that's just unfair, right? Or those are a number of the things that you say that actually now starts to animate your thinking. But it comes from a leadership intent that's not so much about, I win, you lose, or I win, you win, right? It's more about I sacrifice and you benefit. And it comes from something where you're really are focused on the other, recognizing that that's the place actually where abundance really happens as opposed to scarcity, which is so common.
Yeah.
But they talk about the 3 different, dimensions. It's about strategy, which is the what you do. It's operations, which is how you do it, which is really your culture and how you deal with people. And then there's the leadership intent, which is really the why. And Simon Sinek talks about this all the time in his, he calls it the what, the how, and the why in his, stuff that he talks about. Start with why. It's the same thing.
I feel, and it's because we continue to use this word intentional. And I find that we're working so hard to have intentional leadership. It has to be. You have to be intentional. And, so I'd never heard the word redemptive entrepreneurship. That word is new to me.
Well, it's a very old word, and it's about redeeming something. It's about restoring, right? And there's so many beautiful metaphors that we can look at, but what does it look like to redeem something and bring, health or vibrancy or beauty or fairness or, there's so many things that are broken and we can rail against it, but it's like, all right, what can we do to make the world just a little more beautiful after we've been there? Right. And that's part of redeeming it. So one of the things that I found out when I started in the staffing business that I had no idea about, I've quickly realized it's like, I don't like this business, right? Because it's so exploitive and everybody's being hustled and it's like everybody's got your hand in your pocket. But as I understood it, I understood why. And I understood the incredible pressure on the people that worked in it. And most of those people were on commissions only and they were really under a lot of pressure. So they had to do that. So one of the things that we said for our vision for our company was that we just want to leave the world, or we actually want to make an impact so that we've improved the reputation of the staffing industry just a little bit through the experience that they've had with us.
Yeah. I think people, if anyone's listening, I think we want to know, how can we become a redemptive entrepreneur, or how can we put this in our business? So we're really looking to you and I think you're struggling as much every day as maybe, to make that change. Would that sound
Oh,
right?
it is.
Or, yeah.
Oh, it is. And in fact, one of the things that we're struggling with is when you make those kind of choices, and this is where the how gets really important. I think, how the culture is that you have is so vital. It needs to be like your touchstone. And it's something that I've been, focused on for many years. And the how is about, how do you show up? What are the core values? And those are not aspirational values where I think this is what I am or what I want to be. This is, what do other people say about me, right? When I'm not there, what's my reputation? And I think you have to really think about, what are the core values and what are the things you want to be known for? And then everything has to be aligned with that. But what's beautiful, though, and also very challenging, is that when you're hiring staff or when you're trying to connect with a client, right, you think about all the problems you have. Often it's because there's a values misfit, right, or misalignment, right? So if you are really wanting to prioritize relationships first, and we sign up for a client that's everything about the buck, right, everything is about money, there's going to be some problems, right? And why do that? And the thing is that if you really spend time aligning your relationships, in a way where your values and your mission, where there is good alignment, it actually makes for some really fulfilling work. And you start to build this reputation within this pool. There's a thing about culture that I really learned is it's like a magnet. And a magnet needs to do two things. We often think about it attracting, but it also needs to repel. You need to be really clear about who you are.
Yeah. I think the hard part, though, John, is, if you're not making the money and you get a contract and it's not, you should be repelling, but it's money. And that's really, because people have got to pay the bills. And so I feel like sometimes we sacrifice.
I had a conversation with a young woman in her late 30s just last night, who is a real professional, in healthcare, but she's a real entrepreneur. And the life's getting sucked out of her through the bureaucracy and the rules, and especially because of what's happened with COVID, just layer upon layer upon layer of policies and procedures that are just sucking the life out of her. And she loves to work with developmentally challenged kids and autistic kids, but she's so constrained. And so it's like, how do I get out? How do I do this? And so a big part of it was, well, spend some time really talking and thinking about what's really important to you. Right? Where do you want to be 10 years? If you could dream, where would you want to be in 10 years from now? And then what would that look like in 3 years? And then a year? And so you have this kind of this laddering up of your goals. And then you say, okay, what's really important for me to get to step one? And then you start to think about, yeah, money's important, but here's the thing, is that there's a lot of different people around us. And are we trying to do this ourselves? I did that for many, many years. Like I said, I had spreadsheets galore. But the point is that if I spend some time talking to people, say, I'm really pumped about this. What do you think about it? Ask people. Spend time interviewing them in the field. And, it's amazing. I told this young woman, I said, you know what? She wants to do something in this space with respect to, helping out families, especially people that are, in the lower economic range, find resources for their kids. So it's like, spend some time just establishing a social media presence. Spend some time talking to them, asking the questions, build relationships, get to be known as somebody who cares. And she can do that in her spare time, right? But then it's like, you're going to get to a point where you say, all right, how do I now transition? And you got to think about what's your living wage? What do you need to do to put bread on the table? Well, there's some things that you can do, but you do it often with your family around you. And sometimes you have to have others contribute. But it's building this transition plan, and then also having the accountability systems around you to help you stay on it, because it's hard to do alone. But the biggest thing is courage. And that was something that I lacked for many years. And I remember a friend telling me this when I was considering my options, the traditional safe ones for starting my business. He said, if you don't believe that you can do this, no one else will, because they'll see it in your eyes. And it really is about inviting a team of people around you to help you and ask questions. You're not the smartest person in the room, and I'm not either.
Yeah. In a conversation prior to this podcast, you talked, and I wrote down, it's in our DNA to serve. And I think of this woman that you talked with yesterday, and people that are listening, you have an opportunity. You could go serve in the industry you want, as a breakthrough. I mean, we need to surround ourselves with people, but go into something and serve the people and help.
It's amazing how you break down barriers, with kindness. My granddaughter loves to say kindness is a superpower, and she's absolutely right. I have another fellow that worked with me, in marketing and growth marketing, and he always would say curiosity is a superpower, and he's so right. Because curiosity, you can't be truly curious if you're not humble. And if you're humble, you're teachable, and then you're going to be able to ask questions in a way where you're actually listening, right? Which is something that we often don't do very well, right? We're quick to talk and even yell at each other. But how well do we listen and show kindness? And it's amazing the walls that break down, and it's amazing how people will actually be attracted to you as a person.
Right. You have a very smart granddaughter.
Yeah, she actually is.
Yeah. So earlier, it was funny, you talked about the compass, and we've talked about the moral compass. And this morning, and I'm not even kidding how things happen, I'm doing a quick study on Proverbs, and I marked it here, and Proverbs 2, verses 9 and 10, and I'm going to have to put on my glasses to read this.
Oh.
Yeah. And it says, aging with glasses, yes. Then you will
You shouldn't need that in your 20s.
Thank you. And anyway, Proverbs 2, verses 9 and 10. Then you will understand what is right, just, and fair, and you will find the right way to go. For wisdom will enter your heart, and knowledge will fill you with joy. And that was my study this morning. And I'm like, that is just amazing. I'm talking with. And so I listened to it on an app, and they went into a study, and they talked about your compass. I'm like, that is funny. I'm having a conversation with John today. That's how things happen in my life.
It happens to me all the time. These,
it's not coincidental.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what they are; they all keep happening, which is cool.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that I really appreciated about being with LeaderImpact is when they came out with that. And I know I heard it first in a different way, but it truly is. When you look at your personal, professional, and the spiritual dimensions of your life, like we live in a very secular country, where we say, oh, this spiritual stuff should be put in a closet, keep to yourself, whatever. But I've traveled in the Middle East, and I've traveled in Africa, and I've traveled in South America, I've been in Asia, but it's amazing in so many places, especially in the Middle East. It's like the spiritual dimension of your life is so fundamental, right? Mm-hmm. And but anyways, one of the things that I've really found is that as I've matured in life, I've realized that, my spiritual compass is so important to guide me in the choices that I make with respect to my time, my talent, my finances, in the professional and the personal spheres, right? Mm-hmm. And we often think, well, we don't really have a compass, and that stuff's not for us, but I can tell you, everybody has a compass. If you want to find out, look at their checkbook and look at their calendar, right? Ooh. Those are the ways. How do you spend your money and how you spend your time? That will tell you, right, what your compass is. Will certainly give you some clues. Yeah. Right. And the thing is that for me, my compass was I needed to be successful so that I could be accepted. Mm. And it was working. But you know what? What I also realized that relationally, there was a lot of stuff that was like relational collateral damage. I got what I wanted, but there was relational collateral damage. And one of the things that I came to see in retrospect is that because of that link between acceptance and success, I flipped it around. And I also I didn't accept you unless you were successful. Oh, and it was an implied thing, right? And it was particularly a problem in some of the key relationships, including with my son. And my son is brilliant, but he's still working out his own way, just like I had to. And I realized that for too long, I was trying to make him successful to truly accept him. And so that's been a big part of my own journey as I really come to see what's the compass I want to be following. Mm-hmm. And for me, I went through some very tough times, through my 30s and 40s. And it was really in my 49th year that I came to terms with the fact that Jesus is going to be my compass. There's a lot of things I don't know, but there's so many things I appreciate about him and how he shows me how to live. Mm-hmm. What does it look like to be fully human in the relationships with people? And so I've really been on a journey as an apprentice of Jesus, and I really use that as my guide. Mm-hmm. And it's really cool when I start to find other people to help me process that, but it's tough. And that's where sacrifice is. Like, there's no other person that ever that physically walked on this earth other than Jesus that could demonstrate what sacrifice looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he says, you got to follow me. So as I start to lean into this thing called sacrifice, I've had to realize that there's some stuff I need to deal with, right? And I need to unpack.
Yeah.
And, but anyways, that's the journey that I'm on, but it now colors all my decisions. And we're actually going through a process to actually establish 3 core guiding principles for our new enterprise. And we're actually needing to spin it off into a not-for-profit. We're taking what's in the for-profit and we're spinning it off as a not-for-profit here over the next few months, which is an interesting. So from a sacrifice standpoint, I'm actually giving away all future profit.
Wow.
I see the value in it. One of the key things is we want to be Jesus-centered, customer or relationships first, and client focus. Those are 3 guiding principles.
Mm-hmm.
And what does it look like to do that? So now it's like, all right, how do we make staffing decisions? How do we align with clients?
Mm-hmm.
How do we align with other partners? And we're processing that, and we basically have a set of values that boils down to. But a lot of it is we're not driven by fear, because I've had so many examples of this. Is that you're driven by faith in what you believe to be true. For me, it's my compass, and I have not been disappointed. But I can tell you, many things happen at the 11th hour. So that's part of faith. But it's also that I've learned that I've got to put myself second, right, as opposed to first, which I did for so many years. And it's amazing how that's transformed my relationships, my business, my personal life, my marriage.
Good.
And I'm on a journey for sure. But that's the thing about actually working it out. You got to do the tough stuff, and you got to do it in community. You have to have people that you give approval to say, you got to hold me accountable, including my team.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yes. So before we get off the whole sort of professional and redemptive entrepreneurship, I want to mention, I found there's a book, I believe it's on Praxis, The Redemptive Business, a playbook for leaders, and it's a free online. So if anyone is
that's a great one. And there's also one for redemptive for not-for-profits, right? So Praxis Labs and the Redemptive Framework, there's quite a bit of materials. There's stuff on Amazon that you can get, but it's amazing, and it's something this world needs. There's way too many exploitative companies, and ethical is great, but what we need is people stepping into brokenness. One of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to open up staffing. There's a huge demand for labor. Everybody's struggling, but there's also a huge labor source in places around the world where they don't have the same kind of opportunities that we do. So we're trying to connect the dots. Why? There's an injustice there. There's an unfairness there. There's a need there.
Yeah, good. I'm going to transition a bit. You talked a little bit earlier how you created the integrate business, professional, personal, professional, spiritual. You started that. So
I heard it. I didn't start it.
Well, yeah. So I want to ask you a little bit about LeaderImpact, because that's why we're here. And how did you get involved with LeaderImpact? Are you still involved?
Yeah, I am. I got involved actually in 2009. It was right at the time when I was contemplating, am I going to Europe and going to the US? Am I starting my company? And, I was the executive director at the time, John Abercroft. Somebody said, you need to go, so I ended up chasing contacts, and I ended up in conversation with him, and he tried to recruit me as an area leader. And I said, sounds really cool, but I'll join a group. And so I did. And you know what? It was amazing experience for me. So I was first part of a group in Pickering, because that's where I was living. Our business is still anchored there, but we deal nationally now. But I remember going to the first group, and then we had to get an office. We did that in Whitby, which is a little bit further to the east. And I had to find an office that had a big welcoming boardroom in it, specifically because of LeaderImpact. That was the intent. And so I did that. We opened it up in 2012. We started a group there, and it's been amazing. But I made so many friends and had such positive experiences, and had so much great counsel and advice as I was starting my business that I knew nothing about, right? I've always worked in a corporation. Yeah, I built big things, but always with somebody else's money. No, it's me, right? Or it's our team. So it's been tremendously powerful. So I was group leader for many years. I was a city chair for a lot of years. Now actually on the advisory board nationally, and have been a number of global exchanges were life transforming for me. Got great friends now in Colombia. I've been there a couple of times. Yeah, and I'm still involved actually in a new venture that I'm working on.
Good. So I want to ask you just for those people listening, thinking, is it for me? Because I think because not everybody is a follower of Jesus. There are some seekers and I know there are in my own group. They're there because they think, I want more. I like this, what I'm hearing. I'm still nervous. And do you find that?
You know, there's I think it depends on who's the Jesus that you were interested in, right? And this is one of the things that I always appreciate about Jesus is that he didn't say, he didn't call the religious leaders, well, necessarily, some of them he did, but he didn't say, go figure it all out and get all your ducks in a row and agree with me. No, he said, just hang out with me. That's what follow me meant. Just hang out with me. And as you hang out with him, you start to learn about him. But we get to do this in community. So in our groups, it's like, what does it look like to actually just be inclusive, just where everybody is welcome and there's a safe place. And we truly want to be human with each other. We want to listen. But what does it look like to explore this compass and say, let's talk about our respective compasses. How's it working for you? How's it working for me? And then we start to share it. So I look at it, I always loved it to be able to share, hey, these are the things that I'm learning from Jesus. This is the thing that I've learned, these experiences that I'm having, but they're all about, things that are life enriching as a human, right? And ultimately, if you lead with love, like people are going to step in. Never forget, young man, that, I had the opportunity, I've had some really cool experiences, but this fellow, actually, he had almost crashed and burned. He had been very successful. He'd gone very quickly, had success professionally, but creating problems personally. So he started to self-medicate, and he ended up with substance abuse issues, completely crashed and burned, lost everything, almost lost his life, ended up in prison for selling drugs. And he's got this beautiful story. He says, my birthstone is rock bottom. And which is great. So anyways, one of the women in our group was actually on a train. She saw him and she's listening to his call and seeing the book he was reading time after time. They all sit in the same spot on the GO train, and struck up a conversation and said, you should really check this group out. And she gave him my number. And it was really cool to bring him in. So he came up with all these experiences. He just comes from a higher power to the concept of God, but he met Jesus in our group. And it was because of a welcome. It was a welcoming place for him, and he experienced it in other people. We've had atheists do the same thing. People that self-identify as atheists. It's like, come on in. And one particular fellow, after 6 weeks, he had a prayer request. And it's like, what? Right? And it was amazing because God answered that prayer request in an hour. Next week, had another one, answered it in a day. All of a sudden his eyes opened up and he looked at his life totally different. And all we were doing is just trying to be real and welcoming and sharing our own experiences. But it's like we went to another we had an event, breakfast, and a speaker shared, and there was a young professional, or it was a woman that was a lawyer. He said, what'd you think of it? And she goes, yeah, the topic was really interesting, but you know what struck me? She says, you guys are all full of peace. You got this peace about you. And it's like, that's it. And people are drawn to us if we have been transformed. They're drawn to me. If I've been transformed, if I'm trying to be, all together and everything else, it's like, forget it. But I'm being real. We're all being real around the table and trying to encourage each other. And it's like people come like moths to a flame. If that's real, yeah. Like the truth is the truth. It is the truth. Jesus is love. And it's like, we're all as humans attracted to love.
Yeah.
So, I living it out.
Yeah, I had a podcast, and that was so similar. And my guest was very attracted to someone just because she had such peace. And she goes, I don't know, like, what are you doing? Like, I want what you have. So I love hearing that story again and again and again. I think it's
in spite of the brokenness and the challenges that I have in my life, and all the warts and so on that I have.
Because that brokenness is around us. And it's
and
no
it's in
different.
me.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's about a process, and it's about every year I'm just a little bit more of I become a little bit more of that full human being. And that's the thing I truly believe, that Jesus came to show us what does it mean to be fully human in our relationships with God, self, others, and creation. What's that look like? And yeah, the longer I lean into that, the more I benefit, and hopefully can benefit others.
Good. Now, you mentioned when the woman was on the train and she saw the guy, he was reading a book. And whatever Time After Time or whatever the book was called. My question for you, though, is do you have a favorite leadership book?
Oh man,
So many.
I'm sorry, I don't have a favorite leadership book. I consume books. That started way on in my journey, and I never lost just this hunger. And I actually have about 6 books on the go at once. I'm reading 3 right now. So favorite, I would say I'm really pumped about a couple that I'm reading. One spiritually and 2 culturally. The 2 cultural ones it's called Reinventing Organizations by Frederick Laloux, and it's about how do you make this transition from highly structured, corporate type organizations that are soul sucking into not just team based, but ultimately what they call the teal movement, which is really about self managed teams where we treat each other like adults, right? And we actually are all invited to be part of it. So that's something that we're working on. But I love the book. I'm rereading it again. I have another one I love. I'm reading on the Netflix culture by Reed Hastings and Aaron Meyer. Rules, no rules. That's pretty fascinating. I don't know if it's sustainable with the amount of money they pay their people, but that's quite fascinating. And the last one that I've got is really a spiritual one. I'm rereading it again. It's called Dismissing Jesus. And that's been something that was really powerful for me. So I'm trying to read it again.
Yeah, that is so
So
funny.
sorry, it's not the best
No.
one. I haven't favored the best one.
No, those are all good. And it's funny because I think lately I have become I've got 3 books on the go and very different books, but I read a bit of that every day. So I get it. But last time we talked, you talked about, and I ordered it and I got it. Didn't see it coming.
Oh, that one.
Yes.
That was a good one.
So I just got it. So I'm going to start that one very soon. I'm excited about that.
And you know what? That one is so important. Here's one of the other things about that I've found, and I've really been blessed to serve in many relationships. I have a lot of friends that are in their early 40s, right? It seems weird. I'm quite a bit older, 2 or 3 years. But but you know what I find? There's so many of them. Their lives are broken because they've been following a false or a compass that's not good for them, and their lives fall apart right around 40. And that book is bang on because it's about what happens in the 30s. Never saw it coming because you're so busy doing stuff, and we're all still, thinking good of each other. And it takes about 10 years, then all of a sudden, that's it. We've had enough.
Yeah.
And
Good.
If you want your eyes open, read the book.
Awesome. So that's Didn't See It Coming, Overcoming the 7 Greatest Challenges That No One Expects and Everyone Experiences, Carey Nieuwhof. But
yeah.
All right, well, we're going to head into my final 2 questions with you. I ask all my guests, and as you know, LeaderImpact is dedicated to leaders having a lasting impact. So as you continue to move through your own journey, all the ups and downs, have you considered what you want your faith legacy to be when you leave this world?
I spent some time around the time that I started the business reading the book Finishing Well in Halftime by Bob Buford. And he talks about what do you want your epitaph to be on your tombstone? What do you want it to say? And for years, the thing that's been sticking with me is he loved well. And if you knew me for many years, I did not love well. And a lot of times I still don't. But that's really what to say is he loved well, because I think it says so much. So I would say that's one of the things that I want to be known for is that he loved well.
That's lovely. And my final question is, what brings you the greatest joy?
Yeah, I would say it's seeing my wife's eyes sparkle and a big smile on her face, or my grandkids, or my kids. Same thing, just seeing joy on their faces. I would say long, slow dinners at the lake on the deck or on the dock. Scuba diving on a coral reef. Early morning kayak rides on a still lake. Those are all the things that give me joy. Well, there's more, but yeah. those that come to mind.
Yeah. That's awesome. I think what I love about being part of these podcasts is my cheeks hurt like so much because I'm smiling, and I love being here and hearing people's stories. And I think I know the story, and then I don't know everyone's story, and I hope everyone else enjoys it as much as I do.
You know what? And that's the beautiful thing about being curious. There's so many wonderful stories out there.
There are.
You just got to ask for them.
Yeah, I believe that everyone has a story. So
they do.
So thank you, John. And that was a great conversation about your life, your personal, professional, spiritual, redemptive entrepreneurship, and how you're doing it and still on a journey. Thank you.
Very much so.
All right. So that ends our podcast with John, and I hope everyone listening enjoyed our time. But John, if anyone wants to engage with you, how can they contact you?
They can contact me on LinkedIn, John Bakker, and it's Bakker. I've got the Dutch spelling, and it's a long story of why it's Bakker, but John Bakker is the way to get me on LinkedIn.
All right. Well, thank you again, John.
Okay.
All right. Well, if you're part of Leader Impact, you can always discuss or share this podcast with your group. And if you're not yet in a Leader Impact group, we would love to have you. Check out groups available in Canada at leaderimpact.ca, or if you're listening from anywhere else in the world, check out leaderimpact.com or get in touch with us by email info@leaderimpact.ca, and we will connect you. And if you like this podcast, please leave us a comment, give us a rating or a review. This will help other global leaders find our podcast. Thank you for engaging with us, and remember, impact starts with you.